Hey, good morning. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys showing up, and I hope I can provide something of some value for you this morning. But there's something that I think is really important to get a grasp on, especially for us as we get older. And it's the whole concept of food. There's so much misinformation about foods and diets, and this is going to kill you, and this is going to help you live to be 200 years old. And there's all this information that basically creates confusion. And what we've done here in my program is we've done things to eliminate all of this confusion and help you make sense of it, and more importantly, make sense of it for you and your body. Because the bottom line is there is no one size fits all. If you have the genetics of a Inuit that lives in Alaska, and you try to eat a diet that's a Okanagan diet or a Mediterranean diet, it doesn't work. So what works for one person may not work for another person, and that's why you have to be a little bit more sophisticated in how you think about this. So the bottom line with food is that people need to understand it's not just carbs, fat, protein, calories, right? Those are all ways to measure food, but the important thing to understand is food really is signals. Food, we've all heard that, that let food be thy medicine, and there is a lot of truth to that. But most importantly, everything that goes into your mouth, either food that you chew or things that you drink, sends signals to your cells. And every day, there's signals going to your cells for decay, decline, or growth. There is no status quo, okay? And the problem is, after about age 30, is the default mechanism is always for decline, right? The whole thing about we can't all live forever, and we'd overpopulate the earth, and we only want the young people to be reproducing, and all of those things favor decline and decay of every cell in your body every day. So at best, what most people are doing these days is kind of slowing that process down. There's actually a word for it. It's called inflammaging, right? We've all heard about inflammation, and the biggest takeaway from inflammation is that the beginning phase of all disease states is inflammation. But the higher levels of inflammation, the faster that rate of decay, which is going to equal aging more quickly. And the food that we eat is actually sending signals to every one of our cells every day. Is it sending a signal to arrest the decay, to slow the decay, or is it sending signals to increase the decay? And unfortunately for most people, because of the things they eat, the amount of food they eat, and then you pile on top of that, they're stressed to the max, they don't have a purpose in their life, they're drinking too much alcohol, they're not getting enough sleep, they're eating all these terrible foods, they're drinking all this alcohol that's maybe not healthy for them, and they're not eating in congruence with what their genetics is asking them for, and all of those things start this downhill cascade. And where does it show up the most quickly that I see in the people that I work with? It comes in the form of belly fat. Okay, now I'm not shaming anybody, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but there is certain things that you need to understand about that. That belly fat, especially so there's a difference between cutaneous belly fat, that's the stuff you can grab and shake, right? And that stuff's okay. I mean, you don't want too much of that, but that stuff's okay. The stuff I'm talking about is the visceral fat, the fat that's around your organs. And I've seen this firsthand in dental school. There was 50 of us students, and every 2 students had a cadaver. So there was 25 cadavers that we did, dissected the whole body, and it was a crazy experience to say the least. But So I've cut into those stomachs that were bloated, and I've seen what's inside of that. So I can speak to this firsthand, and I've went and looked at all these other cadavers that had similar issues. I'm telling you, if you could see that once, you would change your whole opinion about, that, well, this belly I'm getting is normal, and it's, well, everybody else has it, so it's okay, right? And I'm telling you, if you could see what I saw visually with my eyes, how that visceral fat was literally choking all of your organs. And not to mention that, but this belly fat is exceptionally inflammatory and contributes to that inflammation thing. I mean, it releases cytokines and all kinds of nasty stuff. Fat is a really nasty tissue, not to mention how much harder your heart has to work to keep that tissue alive, to keep blood pumping through that. So, it's not about, I think a lot of older men in particular think, well, it's going to take so damn much work to get a six pack that, and I'm not the type of guy, I don't want to go to the gym, 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. I mean, it's too much. I've been there, done that, and I'm not getting the results I used to. So I'm just going to, whatever. There's this growing acceptance of a declining average, that it's okay to have this belly. So I'm not talking about body shaming. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm not talking about that your goal should be to get a six pack when you're 60 years old. Maybe let's just recreate that relationship with our belt buckle. Maybe when we look down, we should be able to see our belt buckle. Okay, that's not a real high bar to cross. And we do it every day with our clients by understanding all of these principles and by applying them to you in your specific situation, okay? And I'm telling you, once you do this, most people think it's so hard to do. It's not hard. It takes time, and it takes time to figure out what works for you, because what works for you may not work for me. And so there is some time involved to tracking a few of the key metrics. But once we do that and we figure out your body's owner's manual, you will see this belly fat in a whole different way. Like I say, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm just trying to help people understand how inflammatory that is, how quickly that contributes to decline and aging, not just the number of years you live, but how you feel when you get out of the bed in the morning. I mean, people can't believe once they start to lose that belly fat and they, maybe cut back on the drinking and start doing a few of these other little tiny behaviors, they add up to something that's amazing, that literally changes their life. They realize that if you go around every day feeling crappy, you don't know what it's like to not feel crappy. And when you experience that, even for just a few days, and you start to see cause and effect, that by doing these things, I can get a little bit better every day. And by doing these things, I'm getting a little bit worse every day. When you start to see the benefits of dialing in these little things, it's lights out. That's what creates the discipline and the motivation to pull you forward. Unfortunately, what most people do is they wait till some catastrophic event. They either have a heart attack, or they trip and fall, or they just their blood work's been fine all these years, and now their cholesterol is high, or their blood sugar is high, and they can't figure out why. Well, the problem is, by the time these things start to show up in your blood work, I know tons of people that have gone in, and these stories too, they've gone in, their blood work's perfectly normal. They maybe even did a stress test, and a week later they have a heart attack. We all know those stories. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that by the time these things start to show up in your blood work, start to show up with these catastrophic events, it's really hard to turn that train around. And so I just want people to understand that there is a better way. There's a way to live in alignment with who you're supposed to be. to live to your full potential, to not just in number of years, but in quality of years. And when you do that, you'll be more productive, you'll be more happy, you'll be more fulfilled in your life. And so I would just encourage you to think about this, because waiting till something catastrophic to happen usually doesn't end well. And it's so sad to see, because when you could see things like I've seen it in the cadaver lab, or once we help people make this transformation, if you could see literally how that transforms them inside and out in every aspect of their life, in their relationships, in how they show up, in the things that they can do now that they never used to be able to do, in this impact that they can have when they thought that they'd kind of retired and life was over. When they realize that and see that, you can't not shout it from the rooftops. And so I want you to start thinking about food as way more than just protein, fat, carbs, and calories. And especially when you go to your doctor and they say, well, you're putting on some weight. What do they all say you need to do? You need to eat better and you need to start exercising more. What the hell does that look like, right? How do you even quantify that? And then how do you do that that's in alignment with who you are genetically, in alignment with the lifestyle you want to live? How do you do that? That's what we do here. And so if you've had enough, or you know there's that ticking time bomb, or you look down and you can't even see the tips of your toes, let alone your belt buckle, you know that feeling. And when you're finally had enough, when you're ready to move forward, send me a message, DM Vital or whatever you want to say. I can send you a little self-assessment. So, I'm just the messenger, right? And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but I know how to help get you from where you're at right now to where you want to be. I know how to manage that gap. And that's what we do here. I would love to help you, but you got to ask for it. You got to want help. And like I say, we can either have a conversation on the phone, or I can send you a little self-assessment so you can see in black and white for yourself where you're at and that road you're headed down if you don't take action. So thanks for listening today. I appreciate you all being here. If you have any questions or you have any things that don't make sense about this, you know how to get a hold of me. Send me a message. I love to talk to people and help people. That's what I do. That's what I'm here for. That's my purpose. And so thanks for listening. And if you need something, let me know. Take care. Cheers.